Welcome back, everyone, to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast. We've got quite a stack of information laid out here, and we're excited to turn it into a bit of an adventurous, maybe even catchy story for you today.
Absolutely. And today's subject, well, he wasn't just another country star. He was, a real force of nature. Completely reshaped the landscape.
Yeah, redefined what country music could even be, right? Where it could go, how big it could get.
Exactly. The reach was just incredible.
Okay, so let's get into it. Our mission, as always, is to unpack this phenomenon. We're talking Garth Brooks. His journey, Oklahoma roots to, well, global icon status, the career highs, which were massive, and some, let's call them unique detours.
He definitely kept people guessing sometimes.
Right. And how did he become one of the all-time best-selling artists? We're sticking only to the sources you've shared for this deep dive, piecing together that story.
And it's quite a story. Lots of innovation, boundary pushing, and this really intense connection with his audience. You see it in the sheer scale of things.
So where do we start with this record-breaking, boundary-pushing artist, Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Tulsa, Oklahoma, yeah. 1962. Troil Garth Brooks. And music was definitely in the family mix. His mom, Colleen McElroy Carroll, she was actually a country singer in the 1950s, recorded for Capitol Records, the sources say.
Ah, okay, so the music gene was there from the start, kind of.
Seems like it. They apparently had these family talent nights in Yukon, Oklahoma, where they moved, and the sources mentioned participation was pretty much mandatory. So that's where he picked up guitar and banjo.
But music wasn't his main thing at first, was it? That's kind of surprising.
Yeah, that's one of the early twists. In high school, it was all about sports. Football, baseball. He even got a track scholarship to Oklahoma State University for javelin.
Javelin, wow. That feels like a long way from selling out stadiums for music.
It really does. But, needed money in college. So he worked as a bouncer, and he put together a band, Santa Fe. They played, well, basically whatever the college crowd wanted. A real mix.
And his influences reflected that mix, not just country.
Oh, totally diverse. The sources list singer-songwriters like James Taylor, Dan Fogelberg, even Townes Van Zandt, but then also Billy Joel, Springsteen, Queen, Kiss, big arena rock sounds.
So how does a guy influenced by Kiss end up revolutionizing country music? What was the turning point?
There was this specific moment, apparently. Hearing George Strait's first single, Unwound, back in '81, that was it. He decided country was his path. An attorney actually encouraged him to try Nashville.
And he just packed up and went.
Well, not quite smoothly. The sources have this great detail. He went to Nashville the first time, got totally overwhelmed, and drove right back home, like within 24 hours.
Wow. Takes some nerve to go back after that.
It really does. But he did. He moved back in '87 with his then wife, Sandy Mall, and started, making the rounds, meeting people.
And that finally led to the big break.
Right. Debut album, self-titled 1989. And it did really well. #2, Canary, #13 on the main Billboard 200 chart. That's huge for a debut.
What were the songs that really launched him from that first album?
Well, Much Too Young to Feel This Damn Old got him into the top 10. That got the ball rolling. Then came If Tomorrow Never Comes. That was his very first #1. Huge song. Not Counting You went to #2. And then The Dance, also #1.
The Dance is such a classic. And the video was pretty impactful too, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Very emotional, very different. He's often said it's his favorite song he's recorded.
So instant success, pretty much. Did that get him on the road quickly?
Yeah, his first big tour was actually opening for Kenny Rogers in '89. But if that first album was the breakthrough, the second one was the explosion.
No Fences.
No Fences. 1990. Just a monster album. 23 weeks at #1 on the country chart. Hit #3 on the Billboard 200. And it became his biggest seller domestically. We're talking 17 million copies in the U.S. alone.
And that's the album with, well, probably his most famous song ever.
Friends in Low Places, absolutely, the ultimate sing-along. But it also had other massive #1s. The Thunder Rolls, Unanswered Prayers, Two of a Kind, Working on a Full House. Just hit after hit.
And the country music establishment embraced him quickly, too.
Oh, yeah. Right in the middle of that No Fences mania, late 1990, he gets inducted into the Grand Ole Opry.
So he's selling millions, topping charts, joining the Opry. He's arrived. But the sources stress he wasn't just fitting in, he was changing the game, especially live.
This is where those diverse influences really kick in. The music's country, yeah, but the show, that was something else. He started using a wireless headset mic. That was pretty revolutionary for a country act then.
Allowed him to move, right? Not stuck behind the mic stand.
Exactly. He was running, jumping, climbing. bringing this total arena rock energy. He cited rodeo star Chris Ledoux and, yes, Kiss Again as inspirations for the theatrics.
So it wasn't just singing the songs, it was a full-on performance. Physical.
Totally. And audiences went nuts for it. His next album, Rope in the Wind, 1991, it didn't just sell well, it made history. It was the first country album ever to debut at #1 on the main Billboard 200 chart.
Wow. Not just #1 country, #1 overall.
Yeah. Biggest artist in America, period. That was a huge crossover moment. Rope in the Wind had hits like The River, What She's Doing Now, and that killer cover of Billy Joel's Shameless. He even had 3 albums in the Billboard Top 20 at the same time during this period. Just dominating.
And he wasn't afraid to use that platform for songs with maybe more challenging themes.
Not at all. Take We Shall Be Free from his 1992 album The Chase. He co-wrote it after the LA riots. It's this powerful gospel country rock song about tolerance, unity.
How did that go over on country radio?
It only hit #12 country, which was maybe a bit lower than usual for him then, but it charted on Christian radio, and interestingly, it won a GLAAD Media Award in '93 for its inclusive message.
A GLAAD award for a country song in the early 90s. That's pretty notable.
Shows he was willing to push some buttons, speak his mind, but The Chase still had monster hits, don't get me wrong. Somewhere Other Than the Night, Learning to Live Again, and the biggest one, That Summer. Huge #1. Plus, he dropped his first Christmas album, Beyond the Season, that year too. Another massive seller.
Okay, but before the next studio album, things got a little contentious, the used CD thing.
Ah, yeah. With In Pieces in 1993, he took a really strong stand against stores selling used CDs. His argument was artists weren't seeing royalties from those sales. He actually tried to get his label, Capitol, to withhold the album from stores that sold used copies, led to lawsuits, headlines.
Did that hurt the album's release?
You'd think it might, but no. Despite all the drama, In Pieces was another #1 smash on both country and pop charts. Sold close to 10 million copies eventually. The controversy didn't really dent his popularity, it seems.
And then he took that massive popularity worldwide, first world tour.
Yeah, 1993, 1994. And it was groundbreaking. He wasn't just playing overseas, he was selling out places American country artists just hadn't before, like Wembley Arena in the UK.
Filling out Wembley, that's rock star territory.
Exactly. He was bringing that arena show globally. The British press apparently nicknamed him Garth Vader, kind of half joking about this country invasion, but clearly it worked.
And speaking of rock stars, he actually teamed up with one of his heroes.
He did.
Yeah.
In '94, he sang Hard Luck Woman with Kiss on a tribute album. They even performed it together on The Tonight Show. Kind of wild pairing, but it even charted a bit on the country charts.
That's the kind of unexpected stuff that makes his career so interesting. Okay, so after the world tour, In Pieces, what's next?
1995 brings fresh horses. It did well, sold millions, had hits like She's Every Woman, The Beaches of Cheyenne, but maybe didn't quite match the stratospheric sales of the previous few albums. His cover of Aerosmith's The Fever actually missed the top 10, which was unusual for him.
But that led into another huge tour, right?
Oh, yeah. His second world tour, 96 to 98. This thing was enormous. Sold like 5.5 million tickets, third biggest tour attendance ever at the time, grossed over $100 million.
That connection with the live audience just seems central to everything.
It really is. And that was demonstrated in maybe the most insane way possible in 1997. There was even a little dispute with his label delaying his next album, Sevens.
What happened?
Well, even with the album delay, he had this concert planned for Central Park in New York City. And the number the sources give is just staggering. 980,000 people.
Wait, nearly 1 million people in Central Park for Garth Brooks.
Almost 1 million people. Largest concert crowd in Central Park history. It just shows the sheer scale of his appeal by that point. It wasn't just country fans anymore.
That's unbelievable, truly.
It is. Sevens did eventually come out, debuted at #1, of course, sold another 10 million, had that great duet with Trisha Yearwood in Another's Eyes, and #1s like Long Neck Bottle, Two Pina Coladas, and his cover of Dylan's To Make You Feel My Love.
And he capped off that era with a live album that broke records, too.
Double Live, 1998, became the best-selling live album of all time, certified 21 times platinum, still one of the top-selling albums ever in the U.S., just massive.
Okay, before we get into the next chapter, which includes a pretty major plot twist with his retirement, if you're enjoying this deep dive into the Garth Brooks phenomenon, please do hit that subscribe button for Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast. It really helps us keep bringing these stories to you.
Definitely appreciate the support. And yeah, the story takes another very unexpected turn. We have to talk about Chris Gaines.
Ah, yes. 1999. Chris Gaines. What was that? Explain it for us.
Okay, so the sources say this was all tied to a movie project called The Lamb. Garth was supposed to star as this fictional Australian rock star character, Chris Gaines. To kind of promote the movie ahead of time, he released an album, Garth Brooks, in the life of Chris Gaines. It was positioned as Gaines' greatest hits. He fully became the character, different look, whole backstory, even a mockumentary.
So Garth Brooks, the biggest country star on the planet, suddenly shows up looking like a moody rocker. How did people react?
Mostly with confusion, maybe some bewilderment. The sources describe the reception as pretty unenthusiastic, even hostile from some corners. He tried. He hosted Saturday Night Live as himself, but performed as Chris Gaines. Did a VH1 behind the music as Gaines. It just didn't click with the public.
Did the album sell at all? Or was it a total flop?
Well, flop is relative for Garth Brooks, right? It still sold over 2 million copies, which is huge for almost anyone else, but way below his usual standard. The movie got shelved. But interestingly, it did give him his only Billboard Top 40 pop hit, Lost in You. So a weird detour, but it made a little mark. He also put out another Christmas album late that year.
Okay, so after this whirlwind decade, massive sales, world tours, the Gaines experiment, he drops a bombshell.
October 2000, he announces he's retiring. Done with recording, done with touring.
Retiring at the absolute height of his fame. Why?
The sources say it was about the conflict between his career demands and family life. He had 3 young daughters. He made this very public promise. No more touring until his youngest finished high school. Capitol Records also announced around then he'd hit 100 million albums sold in the U.S. Just incredible timing.
To walk away from that kind of success for family. That's almost unheard of in show business.
It really is, especially at that scale. He released one more album before the official break, Scarecrow, in 2001. Debuted at #1, naturally, but sales were a bit softer, like Fresh Horses. And then, for several years, he pretty much vanished from the spotlight, focused on being a dad.
But retirement didn't stick forever, did it? He started easing back in.
Yeah, around 2005, he started doing some select shows, and he made a really interesting business move back then. He signed an exclusive deal with Walmart to distribute his entire back catalog. That was pretty pioneering, a major artist bypassing traditional retail like that.
So fans could still get his music, just only at Walmart. And did new stuff come out that way?
Exactly. Walmart re-released all the classics, put out some box sets, and one called The Lost Sessions had unreleased tracks. He also released a new single in 2005, Good Ride Cowboy, which was a tribute to his friend Chris Ledoux, who had passed away.
And even in this sort of semi-retired phase, he still managed to break another chart record.
He did. In 2007, a new single, More Than a Memory, debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart. That had never happened before. Highest debut in the chart's history up to that point.
Still breaking records, and the demand for live shows was clearly still there, even if he wasn't touring full-time.
Oh, absolutely insane demand. In 2007, he announced 9 shows in Kansas City, sold out in less than 2 hours. Then in 2008, 5 shows in LA for wildfire relief, sold out in under 48 hours. They even filmed those for a CBS special.
He also popped up on a pretty big national stage around then.
Yeah, performed at the Obama inaugural celebration console in D.C. in 2009, sang We Shall Be Free, some other hits. Said it was about unity.
And then came a different kind of live commitment, the Vegas residency.
Right. Garth at Wynn from 2009 to 2014, the whole idea was that he could fly in, do weekend shows, and be home with family during the week. These were apparently more intimate, solo acoustic shows, lots of stories, covers of his own influences. That residency inspired the Blame It All on My Roots box set in 2013.
So the Vegas residency wrapped up. Was that the end of the official retirement?
Pretty much. In 2014, he announced a full-on world tour was coming. But it hit a pretty big snag right out of the gate in Ireland.
Oh, right. The Dublin controversy. What went wrong there?
He booked 5 nights at Croke Park Stadium in Dublin, sold something like 400,000 tickets, just shows his massive global draw. But then licensing issues came up. Local residents objected to 5 shows. Permission was only granted for 3. Garth said it was 5 or none.
So he canceled all of them?
Yeah.
After selling 400,000 tickets?
Yep. All 5 canceled. Huge disappointment. Lots of debate over it. Tough start to the big comeback tour.
Ouch. But the tour did eventually happen elsewhere.
It did. He signed with Sony Music Nashville that year, launched the world tour with Trisha Yearwood, ran through 2017, and released his official comeback studio album, Man Against Machine, in 2014.
And he tried another new way to get music out there, didn't he? His own digital store.
Yeah, Ghost Tunes also launched in 2014. The idea, according to the sources, was better royalty rates for artists compared to, say, iTunes or Spotify at the time. Another attempt to control his own distribution, like the Walmart deal. It didn't really take off broadly, though, and eventually folded into Amazon Music in 2017.
So Amazon Music now has his stuff exclusively for streaming, after he held out for so long.
Yep. He finally embraced streaming, launched his own SiriusXM channel too, the Garth channel, and then made the deal for his catalog to stream exclusively on Amazon Music.
And the touring just kept going back to those massive stadium shows.
Oh yeah. The stadium tour ran 2019 to 2022. Huge venues again. He also did a fun little dive bar tour in 2019 promoting that single with Blake Shelton. And the sources highlight one show on that stadium tour, Memorial Stadium in Nebraska. Sold 90,000 tickets, his biggest single-ticketed concert ever.
He also found a unique way to connect during the pandemic, right? The Facebook Live shows.
That was pretty cool. He and Trisha Yearwood just started singing from home on Facebook Live. The first one was so popular it actually crashed the site, led to a CBS special, raised money for COVID relief, really adapting to the moment.
And he stayed visible at major public events, too.
Definitely. Sang Amazing Grace at Joe Biden's inauguration in 2021, again framing it as a call for unity. And more recently performed John Lennon's Imagine with Trisha at President Jimmy Carter's state funeral in early 2025.
Now, speaking of unique moments, there's this one fact in the sources about a concert that sounds almost unbelievable. It really captures that live energy we talked about.
Oh, this is the best one. April 2022. He's playing Tiger Stadium, LSU, Baton Rouge. He launches into Callin' Baton Rouge, which is like the song down there. The crowd goes so wild, stomping, cheering, jumping, that it actually registered as a small earthquake on LSU's own seismograph.
An earthquake.
Yeah.
Caused by the crowd singing along. That's incredible.
Wow.
It perfectly sums up that legendary connection he has with his fans live.
Isn't that amazing? Just the physical power of that shared excitement. And he's continuing that connection. He started a second Vegas residency, Garth Brooks +1, in 2023. Released another album, Time Traveler, late 2023. Did an Amazon Music Live concert from his Nashville bar, too. He's still very active.
So, beyond the music and touring, what else do the sources highlight? His band.
Yeah, his studio band, the G-Men. They've been incredibly consistent, played on most of his recordings, gives his stuff that core sound. Sources mention key players and sadly note the passing of bassist Mike Chapman back in 2016.
And we can't forget the baseball thing. That was so unexpected.
Right. Signing up for spring training with actual MLB teams. The Padres, the Mets, the Royals. The sources have that fun detail. He got his one and only spring training hit off pitcher Mike Myers while he was with the Royals.
Was he actually trying to make it, or is it more for publicity?
It was definitely tied to his charity work. He launched the Touch 'Em All Foundation with Major League Baseball. His appearances, including another brief one with the Pirates in 2019, were largely to promote Teammates for Kids. So more philanthropy than a serious career change.
He also took control on the business side with his own record label.
Pearl Records, yeah.
Yeah.
Started that in 2005 after he left Capitol. Releases his music through Pearl now, often partnering with bigger labels like RCA Nashville for promotion. He also bought the studio where he recorded a lot of his hits, Jack's Tracks, renamed it Allentown Studios.
What about his personal life, as covered in the sources?
Well, they mention his first marriage to Sandy Mall. They have 3 daughters together, Taylor, August, and Allie Colleen. They divorced in 2001. Then in 2005, he married fellow country superstar Trisha Yearwood. Apparently, she even puts his recipes in her cookbooks.
Garth's Breakfast Bowl.
That's the one the sources mention. And he became a grandpa back in 2013.
His charity work seems like a really consistent thread throughout his career.
It's huge. The Teammates for Kids Foundation is his main focus, working with athletes in lots of sports to raise money for children's charities. And he's done countless benefit concerts over the years for disaster relief, Hurricane Katrina, California wildfires. Those LA shows sold out incredibly fast. The Nashville flood, Oklahoma tornadoes, even one down in Brazil.
The sources also touch on his stance regarding gay rights.
They do. They point to public comments he's made supporting equality, specifically mentioning that line in We Shall Be Free, when we're free to love anyone we choose. And note the song won that GLIAD Media Award back in '93. He also sang with George Michael at an Equality Rocks benefit concert in 2000. The sources mention his late half-sister, Betsy Smittle, who was gay and played in his band, was a major influence on his views and advocacy.
Okay, and then sticking strictly to what's in the sources we were given, we need to address a recent legal situation.
Mhm.
In October 2024, a former hairstylist filed a lawsuit alleging sexual assault against Brooks. The sources state Brooks has strongly denied these claims, calling them an extortion attempt and a shakedown. They also mention he initially filed an anonymous lawsuit against the accuser and has since filed a countersuit. We're just reporting what the provided materials say here, neutrally, without taking any side on the allegations themselves.
Exactly, just relaying the information contained within the sources for this deep dive.
So when you step back and look at this entire career arc, the awards, the legacy,
Yeah.
it's pretty staggering.
The list is enormous. Record 22 ACM awards, 2 Grammys, though nominated 13 times, AMAs, including Artist of the 90s, loads of CMA awards.
And inducted into all the major halls of fame.
Well, Country Music Hall of Fame, Songwriters Hall of Fame, Musicians Hall of Fame. That one was alongside the G-Men, his band. He also got the Library of Congress Gershwin Prize for Popular Song, youngest person ever to receive it.
And the sales records. There's always been that discussion comparing him to Elvis, the Beatles. Where does the sources land on that?
They acknowledge it's complex, RIAA rules have changed, figures get debated, but consistently the sources place him right up there. One of the top 2 or 3 best-selling solo artists in U.S. history, usually mentioned alongside Elvis and the Beatles in terms of overall impact and units moved.
But he holds one specific RIAA record that's undisputed and unique.
That's the big one. According to the RIAA, Garth Brooks is the only artist in history with 7 albums certified diamond.
7 albums selling over 10 million copies each in the U.S.
7. That surpasses the Beatles, who have 6. It's an absolutely incredible achievement. Nothing else really illustrates his... Well, I think it's a fascinating look at how you can evolve an art form, while still respecting its roots. It shows the sheer power of live performance in building that artist-fan connection. And it's a case study in what happens when an artist connects on a scale that just breaks the mold of the traditional music industry.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with, drawn from these sources, it's that tension, isn't it? Between the absolute immensity of the Garth Brooks phenomenon, the millions sold, the global tours causing an actual earthquake, and the very personal human decision to walk away from it all for family. Balancing that kind of global enterprise with private life. It's a scale of conflict most people can't even imagine, but his unique path really highlights that challenge. Something to think about.
A truly unique story, absolutely.